In today's video, we're going to be making a ring out of the wheel of one of the most legendary vehicles ever made, the Bugatti Veyron. And while we're at it, we're making a custom display case for this ring that's going to blow your mind. What's up guys? Welcome back to the channel. You heard it right. We are making a ring out of an actual Bugatti Veyron wheel. This is absolutely ridiculous. Just one of these wheels costs 25 grand if you buy it from Bugatti. And then the tire, that's 10 grand. I think in the future we should make like some bracelets or something out of this. But that's not the point of this video. Today, we are making a ring from the spoke here. It's gonna be really awesome. This is a forged aluminum alloy. It's some space age stuff. Super lightweight, super strong. We're gonna be pairing it with some aerospace grade carbon fiber. This is the good stuff and it has an awesome marbleized pattern to it. We're combining the two to make a super lightweight, super strong, super classy looking ring. It's gonna be quite intricate though, so I wanna sketch it up and go over the design with you guys. It's gonna be 3 layers deep and our tolerances are gonna have to be tight. So we've got a lot to do. We're gonna get it sketched up and then the packaging for this is going to be ridiculous. I'm gonna show you all of that too. Let's go ahead and get started. All right, first let's back up a little bit. So that smaller segment of the Bugatti wheel you saw on my desk there, that is from a larger, fully intact wheel and tire that we were able to source with the help of some automotive industry friends. We took that over to the Waterjet channel. They helped us cut this piece out. It's going to make it a lot easier to work with. And then they actually made a video with me, cutting it open, looking at the inside of it. It's very interesting. It's a really highly engineered piece of machinery. Even though it looks like a little basic tire, there is a lot going on. You can check that video out in the description if you're interested. All right, back to the making. The very first thing I like to do on an intricate project like this is just sketch it all up, dimension it out. It'll make the whole build process a lot more straightforward and make sure I don't make any little mistakes along the way. As you can see, the overall design calls for 3 layers. It's going to have carbon fiber accents on either of the edges. It's going to have exposed aluminum showing up on the edges of the ring, and then it's going to have another liner made out of carbon fiber in the middle. Each of these layers is 1 millimeter or thinner in thickness, so it's going to be very, very tricky to make sure it all fits really nicely together and to make sure what we're left with is a really nice, smooth, comfortable ring to wear, but we're gonna do it. Let's get started. Now, I don't know about you guys, but when I'm cutting apart Bugatti wheels, the first tool I like to reach for is the good old-fashioned Sawzall. We're gonna use that to cut off one of these spokes, which we'll then cut down even further to make our ring blank out of. Look at that, just like butter, we've got ourselves a very nice chunk of a Bugatti wheel. This is a good sturdy chunk of aluminum. And let's not forget, these shavings are worth their weight in gold. I got myself a little retirement fund going on here. Put these in this baggie, save those for a rainy day. All right, over to the metal saw. We're gonna get this thing clamped in place and then I'm going to cut off a section just big enough to make one ring out of. I'm being very careful not to waste any excess material with this project. You better believe this wheel was expensive and I'm not trying to let any of it go to waste. Now, using my little scribe tool, I'm going to mark off a circle that's roughly the outer diameter of what our finished ring will be. Now back to the saw to cut off that final excess piece, and then we'll go over to the belt sander and we'll start smoothing this thing out. We want it to be pretty close to a circle, and then we'll throw it in the lathe and start machining it from there. All right, we're ready to switch over to the lathe. Our first machining process is going to be to bore out a hole in the middle. I'm just using a standard drill bit for this. The aluminum isn't much of a challenge to get through, so it just machines nicely, and the shavings it gives off are just really cool. It's a fun part of the process for sure. All right, it's time to mount the boring bar up in the lathe, and I don't know why they call it that. This next step is going to be anything but boring. We're removing a bulk of the material here, so we're just going to be chewing through the inside of this ring, slowly widening that inside diameter until we can find the ring hidden in the material. I'm going to go ahead and stop about 1 millimeter under our final dimension size. We're going to do plenty of final trimming, sanding, and polishing in the later steps, and I just don't want to get it too close right now because any mistakes I make could end up ruining a ring blank, which would be a very sad and costly mistake. All right, we've got the inside of the ring blank looking nice, but I can't say the same about the outside. This looks like a third grader's craft project gone horribly wrong, so we need to change that. We're gonna whip out the Patrick Adair Supplies expanding ring mandrel. We're going to attach the blank to that, and using a tungsten carbide cutting bit, we'll go ahead and slowly trim down that outer diameter. And again, I'm going to stop about 1 millimeter shy of our true outer diameter. Later, I'll do the final shaping to that, but for now, we're just getting it close. All right, it's looking pretty good, but it doesn't really resemble much of a ring because it's so wide. So that's the next step we're moving on to, and this is actually one of the funnest steps. I've got a special lathe attachment that allows me to attach my Fordham cutting tool to my lathe tool post, which from there we can use to very accurately slice our ring blank in half and get us the width we want. And then using a Sharpie, I'll go ahead and mark the whole outer circumference of the blank. That will allow me to use my calipers to precisely mark off exactly where I want to cut this. Now here we go. I fire up the Fordham tool, get that spinning, and then I slowly just rotate it into the ring blank, and it just slowly cuts its way on through. Now I could have just used my lathe bit to cut off all this material, but because it's such a precious, finite resource, we want to save every little bit we can. So this little piece, maybe we can use that in a future project. I'm not about to let it go to waste. All right, that was all the easy stuff. Now it's time to get intricate. And these steps, I wasn't certain exactly the best way to go about doing it. The big challenge with this ring is we have to fit 3 layers of materials in it, all in one small, slim, elegant package. It's not easy. So I started on this first step. What I'm doing here is I'm carving away both the left and right shoulders of the ring blank. That will give us room to add on our carbon fiber accents. But what I quickly realized is if I removed that much material, there wouldn't be enough left over in order for me to grab on accurately in order to bore out the center to its final dimension. So I paused what I was doing and I put it back into the jaws of the lathe. Very carefully applied a 1-layer machining tape around the outer diameter of the ring. That'll protect the surface of the aluminum. And then I went ahead and machined the inside out, and I went so slow and careful on this approach. Every pass I made was just tenths of a thousandth of an inch. It's just so small and delicate until you finally hone it in exactly where you want. These outer edges of Bugatti aluminum are going to be so thin, it's crazy, and in order for them to look good, they have to be precise. It's time to put the ring blank back onto the expanding ring mandrel. We already took care of the right half of the ring. Now we just need to remove that left shoulder, so we'll do that now. All right, here we go. This is our roughly machined Bugatti aluminum ring blank, completely finished. It doesn't even look that crazy, but believe me, the amount of time and effort that went into getting it just to this stage was crazy. It's probably 4 or 5 hours up until this point. Anyways, on to our next step. We are done with the Bugatti aluminum for now. We're moving over to carbon fiber. We need to make 3 separate pieces out of this. We're going to go ahead and get started with the first, which is going to be one of the accents. And again, not to beat a dead horse, but precision is so important here, and carbon fiber is not the easiest of materials to machine, and especially to machine accurately. So I'm just taking this at an absolute snail's pace. I'm slowly machining and cutting the carbon fiber until I can get a perfect press fit with the aluminum piece. All right, here's both of our carbon fiber accents. Before we join them together with the Bugatti aluminum, I need to make sure these are perfectly flat. So I'll use a paint marker to coat the whole outer edge of the carbon, and then I'll hand sand them slowly and carefully until I just barely get rid of all of the paint. That'll make sure it's perfectly flat, and once all the pieces are clamped together, there won't be any gaps between the carbon and the aluminum. All right, these three pieces are ready to get combined together. We're going to use a method called press fitting for this. So we're getting the three pieces all lined up. You'll notice they don't squish together on their own. We need to use some mechanical pressing action in order to literally shove them all together. That makes sure that we've got a really nice tight fit with everything, and it actually doesn't require any glue to hold it together. All right, we're getting really close. All that's missing now is the carbon fiber liner, so we'll go back over to the lathe and machine that out real quick. All right, here we go. Here is the liner roughly dimensioned out. You can see the whole outer assembly sleeves over that just perfectly. Now we aren't press fitting the liner in place. We did that on the accents because they're so small and delicate, but for the liner we have enough surface area to work with that the adhesive is actually going to do a perfectly good job. And then we should be ready to go ahead and conjoin these all together and move on to the final shaping, polishing, and just assembly of everything. Here we go. I used the tailstock of my lathe to help wedge everything together perfectly, make sure it's all flush and nice. Now we just got to carve away any of the excess carbon fiber that's left over. All right, here you can see all three layers exposed. We've got it all nice and flush here. One thing to note is there's no visible gap between any of the materials. These fit together so nicely. It's awesome to see it coming together like this. Now back over to the lathe for the final time. All we're doing from here is trimming away all of the excess carbon fiber, doing a small amount of shaping with some sanding tools, and then polishing it up, and we're going to be finished. So here I'm using my tungsten carbide bit to just slowly whittle away at all the excess material. When we're finished, these carbon fiber accents are going to be less than 1 millimeter thick. That's absolutely crazy. All right, now on to the inside diameter. From here on out, I'm just holding my breath. It's so tedious, it's so stressful. Any little mistake here and this ring is just toast. It's done. We have to start completely over. There is no room for error for this ring, so I'm being so careful. What's difficult about this stage is so much of it is done just carefully and by hand. There's no other alternative to doing this right than just having a lot of experience with the sanding and knowing exactly how much to round things out, because you want it to be comfortable, but you need to know exactly where to stop, because if you go too far, it's just ruined, it's done. All right, our shaping is done. It's time for sanding and polishing. This step's a little bit tedious and I spent a lot of time with it, so I'll kind of just breeze through it here in the edit, but I did spend a good 20-30 minutes just on the sanding and polishing. Boom, we've got the inside finished. It looks amazing. I was so happy at this point. Now we just gotta finish polishing up the outer diameter, and you better believe me, it was hard to keep focused here. This was 2 a.m. at this point. I'd been working on this ring all day long, and just one little mistake, sanding too long in one spot, could ruin it all. So I was trying so hard to be careful, but here we are. We finished it up. Wow, what an awesome looking ring. This thing is crazy. It looks fairly normal from the outside. That was the point of this thing. I wanted to match the kind of overall Bugatti aesthetic. Bugatti doesn't go crazy with their design or their styling or anything like that. They like to keep it classy, but when you look closely, you notice details that just kind of make you scratch your head. So like, for example, on this ring, you look at it and you notice like, wait, that's aluminum exposed on the side? Like that's not easy. That means this is 3 layers thick, and then you start thinking about it and you scratch your head and you're like, what on earth? Why would anyone make a ring this tedious to make? And that's exactly why. It's a beautiful piece of art. It goes under the radar while also looking perfectly classy and having a ton of precision and craftsmanship put into it. I think it turned out awesome. All right, there's the ring finish, but don't go anywhere. The display case we're working on next is going to blow your mind. Let's get that started. You'll notice a nice little change of scenery. We are at the shop of my good friend Dan Moore. He's the expert that's going to be helping us with all of the CNC operations. So for the main body of the display case, we've chosen to use walnut hardwood. It's going to look amazing when it's finished. Right now we're taking these larger pieces and cutting them down with the chop saw into smaller bricks. That way they'll fit into the vise of the CNC machine. Now once we've got the walnut secured nicely in the vise, we're able to let the CNC machine do its thing. We're kind of able to sit back and let it go to work. A lot of the work that goes into these projects when you're using a CNC like this is all done beforehand. So Dan has spent the last month or two iterating, making different prototypes, figuring out what fixturing is going to work best with this, what tools to use, how to do it all. It's been a lot of work. He's put in an impressive amount of effort into this whole thing. And then once Tyler and I show up to film, it just looks so easy because everything just goes so smoothly. It's really awesome to watch this thing in motion. All right, we're done with the walnut for now. Now it's time to work on the certificate of authenticity. For this, we use a laser engraver on a solid aluminum plate. It gives us a really nice clean result, and each ring is individually labeled. This is prototype 001, so we labeled it as such. All right, moving forward, we've done so much to get to this stage. All that's left now is assembling the final, it's like Legos at this point. We just gotta put it all together. It should look great. First, we gotta get started with a little bit of finish on the walnut, get that looking its best. Now we'll put the carbon fiber inserts in place. We cut these out using the water jet, the same tool we used to cut the wheel apart originally. And using a 2-part epoxy and a dead blow hammer, we're able to permanently attach the carbon to the rest of the wood. Now we'll bolt the certificate of authenticity in place. We're using titanium hardware for this. If you didn't know, the Bugatti Veyron is famous for its titanium hardware. So every time you get your engine serviced in the Bugatti, they literally pull the car in half. There's a carbon monocoque that gets attached to the engine cradle subframe, and it's literally held together all just using 14 titanium bolts. It's very cool. I want to call attention to this engine model you see here. This thing is incredible. It's kind of the star of the show in terms of the packaging. I worked together with my friend Derek out of New York City to make this. This is a model of the W16 engine, which is in every Bugatti Veyron. It's what makes this vehicle so insanely powerful and special. It's the perfect little cherry on top for this project. There's so much work that went into every single little piece of this, and seeing it all come together is really cool. This will serve as the top handle that will allow you to remove the lid of your box, and then it just also looks fantastic. Whether you want to leave the packaging on your desk or wherever you want to put it, you can wear your ring and enjoy it and still have this awesome display case ready to go here. It's so cool. Everything came together so wonderfully, whether it's the sterling silver casting, the awesome packaging, the ring itself. There were so many intricate details to getting this all to come together so nicely, and all the work paid off. It was so worth it. Do keep in mind, this is just a first prototype. We do have a couple little fit and finish things to finish up. Just note that we'll dial that in before the actual finished rings get sent out to customers. Anyways, there it is. I'm really anxious to know what you guys think of this down in the comments. So any and all feedback, it's much appreciated. I'll be reading every one of those comments. And of course, these are available for sale on the website. They are limited to just 50. We've got this one wheel. We can make 50 rings out of it. That's it. So if you want to get one, hurry up before those sell out, because I think these should sell out quick. These are awesome. Well, that's it. That's what I've been up to for these last few months. Thank you guys so much for watching. We'll catch you in the next one.